Hey, what's up everybody? Chad Calek here, and welcome to episode number 10 of the In a Crowded Room podcast, which on this episode we're going to be talking about the power of numerology and the power of symbolism, and how the more you pay attention to something, it can really affect your life. Okay? Now, does it affect your life because there is power in numerology and that certain things in life actually carry a power with them? Or do we give these things power? Now, the reason this came up is because I was recently asked if the 18s that appear in my films are intentional, which I thought that would be really obvious that they're intentional. But if you ever wondered, yes, the 18s are quite intentional. It's a very, very powerful number for me, and I'll explain why. And I've also been asked about crows, because crows appear in my films and in my artwork a lot, and if that's intentional, and it's quite intentional. And let me preface this by saying, growing up, I never, ever put any kind of weight into numerology or numbers or anything like that. I definitely didn't believe in, the legend of the crow or anything associated with superstitious stuff. It was never really a part of my life until about 2006, when I started, really digging into the early stages of working on the American Ghost Hunter documentary, which was my family's case. Now, the more and more I got involved in that case, especially anybody working with me, whether it be Justin or even Laura or anybody, the more time and energy they focused on my family's case, the more weird things would start happening in their lives. Now, one of the weirdest things that I noticed right away is at that time I was doing almost daily vlogs. And I'd been doing them for about a year straight, no problem. I'd pop out, do the vlog, everything's all good. And I had an outside location that I did the vlogs on. And all of a sudden, these crows start showing up. And they're doing their coughing really loud. So it was almost like they would wait till I was going to talk. And then they would just go, caw, caw, really loud. And they got super duper annoying. And I started noticing them every frickin' where that I went. If I stopped at a stop sign, there would be a crow on the stop sign. If I stopped at a cross street, there would be a crow up on the electrical wires. If I parked my car, underground, in our subterranean parking, and got out of the car, there would be a crow waiting right in front of the elevator. So I started documenting this. I was like, Laura, I know this sounds crazy, but I need you to see this. And I start showing Laura all these pictures and stuff, and she's kind of going, so you're taking a bunch of photos of birds? Which I was like, I know this seems crazy, but I'm sharing this with you. And I was telling her this. I would say, I'm sharing this with you because the legend of the crow, or one of the legends, is that if they start visiting you, they're harbingers of death. And supposedly, 3 people will die if you are visited by the crows as harbingers. Right after we talked about this, about a week after that, my uncle died of HIV. Now, he had been living fine with HIV for a long time. And then all of a sudden, his health just took a dive for the worst, and it was horrible. And at that time, I didn't really speak up and say anything because I didn't want to say anything. But yeah, there was a part of me that went, well, there's one. But I don't want to... It's like you don't want to say things out loud sometimes because then it makes them real, So I didn't really say much about it. And a few more weeks go by, and the crows are everywhere. I mean, I am seeing them everywhere. I'm hearing them everywhere. In fact, at the time, I remember waking up. I'm not kidding. I woke up, got a glass of milk, walked over to look outside over the water, and heard thong. And I looked to the left of me, and a crow had flown head first right into the glass of a sliding glass door. Now, what's weird about that is crows supposedly are extremely smart. So I'm like, what made this crow fly head first into the sliding glass door that I have? I'm like, this is crazy. What is going on right now? So about 2 weeks after that, Laura has an uncle that dies. Now, out of respect for her family, I'm not going to get into the details of how he died, but suffice to say, it was completely unexpected and really took everybody by surprise. It was extremely sad. And at that point, I do bring it up to Laura. And I say, hey, listen, I don't want to, keep bringing up this crow stuff. I'm like, but I'm seeing him everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And I said, I need you to look at this footage and look at these pictures and see that I'm not crazy, that these damn birds are showing up everywhere. Laura obviously didn't really want to entertain this idea, but with 2 people dead in a very, very short amount of time, it almost seemed like the responsible thing to do was to consider it. And then about a week after that, we got some pretty horrible news. Laura's mother was diagnosed with cancer. And I have to be honest, I was, you know what I'm thinking. My head was just like, here's number 3, But you don't want to say that because, she has cancer, and if she's alive, there's a chance. So you don't ever want to give up on anybody. And I didn't give up until the very end. I prayed every last second. But obviously, you can tell what happened. Laura lost her mother. It took about 6 months for it to happen. Throughout that entire time period, I saw the crows religiously, like every single day. No matter where I went, they were there. It was really disturbing because I just couldn't escape them. This is actually documented in the prequel to American Ghost Hunter called AGH The Missing Element. You can watch this for free on YouTube, okay? And you'll see a lot of the documentation of the crows and what I mean by they would show up everywhere. For example, Laura and I are driving back home, from visiting the Stanley Hotel. It started right away. We leave the Stanley and we stop at a gas station, and there are crows everywhere. I mean, everywhere. Right in front of us, right around our vehicle. So we take off and we leave. We stop in Black Dragon Canyon, Utah, which is nothing, middle of nowhere. And we go down and look at this canyon and take photos. Freezing cold, by the way. And I start hearing, caw, caw. I look over my shoulder. On the do not enter sign, there's one gigantic black crow perched on the do not enter sign. And I'm just like, oh my God, what are the chances? And this thing just cawed at me all the way up. Caw, caw. I'm in Venice Beach. I decide to go down to the beach and just take my camera with me. Right as I get down to the entrance to the Venice Pier, a massive crow is sitting right on the fence. And it lets me walk right up to it, like within a foot of it. And it's just cawing so loud at me. It's just looking straight at me, just going, caw, caw. I mean, it was really creepy, but incredibly interesting. I couldn't just let it go. It was happening all the time. So, when Laura's mom passed away, it was an incredibly painful thing, but I became ultra fascinated with the crows because I started to feel like the crows, I'm not trying to be funny here when I say this, but it almost seemed like the crows were, bringing a message to say, get your affairs in order. If you love somebody and haven't told them, you better tell them. Spend some time with the people that you should be spending time with because they could be gone tomorrow. And if the crows are saying 3 people are going to go, I hated that they brought death with them, but I loved that it almost seemed like some spiritual warning system or something. So I became really, really infatuated with crows. But I also thought that contact, the same level of contact that I had, would continue after Laura's mother passed. And the truth is, it didn't. It just stopped. As quick as they showed up, they left. Now, that doesn't mean that I've never seen a crow, since then, or I didn't see one here or there. But there's a major difference between that and what I'm talking about, which, again, I invite you all to watch AGH, The Missing Element, for free on YouTube. It will show you what I'm talking about when I say they were just everywhere. Now, I kept this in my brain at that time. I put a lot of power into the legend of the Harbinger, the crow as a messenger. I believed it. I believed it because I lost 3 people. 3 people. Which is exactly what the legend states would happen. So I kept that in the back of my head, and right around that same time, I started noticing the number 18 showing up. And when I say I started noticing it, again, guys, I had never before, been looking for numbers to make any kind of sense or explain anything. In order for me to notice it, something profound would have had to have happened for me to care about a number or to fear one. But right about that time, I got off a Paranormal State case, and flew back to Iowa to see my family and to work on my case. Once I landed, I stopped and I got something to eat, and I paid for my meal, and the change that I got back was $18.18. I got in my car, drove 2.5 hours, had to get some gas, stopped, went inside to use the bathroom, and I just left the gas handle clicked so it just pours while you go to the bathroom. I come back out, I got a full tank. My full tank of gas cost $18.18. The more and more I researched the suicides in Iowa, the suicide rate, cases of kids in my class who committed suicide, it's just this number was coming up everywhere. So after doing that research, I had a couple more cases of Paranormal State lined up. So I was only home for a few days when the 18 started popping like crazy. So I flew back out, and I finally confided into Ryan and Sergi, and actually the director, Ben Wolf, at that time. And I started saying, listen, guys, I just want to let you know, I know this sounds crazy, but I think something is messing with me. Something is paying attention to me. And I'm bringing this up for a couple reasons. One, I want their opinion, but 2, we're going into cases together. They need to know if something's messing with me or not. And so does the family. Now, I assured them I felt fine and I could conduct myself, but this was happening. And honestly, I don't think they believed me. I think they, had never heard anything like it as far as 18 showing up everywhere and everything that I do. I even grabbed a Bible at one time and just plopped it open to the middle page just to see, and the last 2 digits were 18. I was like, oh, God, come on. Anyways, I'm kind of bummed out because I'm being honest with these guys. Everyone's looking at me like I'm crazy. No one's having any follow-up conversations with me. Nothing like that's happening. So I'm like, whatever, I'm going to bed. The following morning I wake up, and God is my witness this happened. God, it's easy to fall back in memory lane with this stuff. I just got the chills so bad. Oh my God. So I'm waiting for the call to go to set. And suddenly my phone just starts buzzing like 30 people are calling me at once. It's just nonstop. Bzzz, bzzz, bzzz. I'm like, what is going on? And I grab it, and it's the number 18. And it's a sling of text from Ryan. Just 18, 18, 18, 18, 18, 18. Just buzzing in like crazy. And I'm just like, dude, not funny. I am freaked out about this. That's why I brought it to everybody. This is not a joke that's going to stand with me. So I go immediately down to his door as the 18s are buzzing. And I'm just looking at it, waiting for it to end because I'm going to text him back if he doesn't open his door. and tell him, open your door, dude. Not cool. I'm going to kick this thing in, man. I'm not here, I'm not a toy for you to play with type of shit. And Sergi opens the door, and I can hear Ryan right around the corner on a conference call with A&E. So I know it's not him. So I'm like, what is going on? And I explain this to Serge, and I show it to Serge, and he can't figure it out. So, again, Ryan's on the phone, so I say, okay, well, I'm going to talk to him when he's done, and, I'll figure this out. So I decided I was going to go walk down and get some breakfast. As I'm walking down, I noticed there's something really weird about the 18s. They're moving backwards in time. Now, usually when you receive text, you receive them as they come in accordance with the clock in real time. So if I get a text at 5, then it'll say 5. If I get a text 5 minutes later, it'll say 5:05. These texts were going backwards in time. I've never seen this happen. So I called up the phone company. At that time I was with Sprint, and I'm like, I need to know how this is happening. And they told me two things. One, we don't have any text messages being sent to you from Ryan's phone. And two, they said it shouldn't be possible to have numbers go backwards like that. Which I am completely spooked out at this point. Ryan finally gets off the phone, comes to my room. He's kind of looking at me like semi-freaked out, but I could tell, of course, he's wondering if I'm doing it somehow, if I'm manipulating it. And I tell him straight up, hey, dude, this is not me, man. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to do this, how to make numbers go backwards. I don't know. So, all of us kind of have our thinking caps on to try to figure this out. But I say to him and Serge, everybody else, throughout the day, let's see how many things have the number 18 associated with it. And it was popping up everywhere. It got to the point where it was like, I remember after our first night of filming, it was snowing outside, and Taddy and I decided to hop in our rental car and do some e-braking through the snow. And we were having a blast. We were out in front of this hotel just doing massive cookies and donuts, and we're talking about everything. And she was like, well, what's your room number here at the hotel? And we're all on the 4th floor. I go up there, and of course, I'm in 418 is the number I'm in. And, the next morning, I see Serge, and he's like, have we even checked the address of the house that we're going to? And, sure as can be, the house's main address is yada, yada, 18, yada, yada. And I'm like, wow. I got to the point where, Sergio was even joking, and he was like, tomorrow morning, let's add up our crew members plus any kind of additional cast members throughout the day. And yes, of course, the total number was 18. It was just becoming very, very obvious that this was real. And I got to be honest, it really scared me. It really, really, really scared me. Because I felt like, again, this thing was taking an interest in me. Why am I seeing crows? Why is number 18, around me all the time? I felt like something big is fixing to happen. Something really bad is fixing to happen. We're just in way too deep. That's how I felt. It was freaky. It scared me. It scared me to the point that I started seeing 18 in everything. Like just, whether it was there, whether it wasn't. I was just so freaked out. I finally started to become that person. That's so into a theory that he can't separate himself from it, be rational about it, because I've seen too much and I'm too freaked out. Until eventually I talked to my father about it. My dad's a very religious man, very spiritual man. He's a Christian faith. I told my dad about this, and he goes, listen, son, I could assure you anything spiritual can only hurt you if you allow it to. You're giving it the power. And he was like, the number 18, he's like, Chad, there's nothing wrong with this number. He's like, well, it's a number. You're afraid of a number. Sometimes that's what it takes. It takes a father to slap the shit out of you and make you wake up. And he was like, it's a number, Chad. It's a number. And as far as the crows go, he goes, do you know how many people see crows every day? He goes, if that was true and 3 people died every time they saw a crow, It would take about a week to wipe out most of the world's population. I said, God, it's totally true. He's like, nobody died because you saw a crow, man. He's like, I don't know why you saw crows. I don't know why they're around you. I believe you, and I don't know why. He's like, the number 18 in a crow, they can't hurt you. And I eventually said to myself, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to live in fear of birds and try to duck out on birds. I'm not going to live in fear of number 18. I'm going to find a way to overcome it. And right at that time, it turns out the fans of Paranormal State enjoyed me on the show, and through their support, I was given my own TV special, in which all I had to do was pick a place to investigate. And I'm like, okay. I had the budget to go anywhere I wanted in America. And I looked at all kinds of places. And then I came across one that just magically fit like you can't imagine, and that was the St. James Hotel. The St. James Hotel is a hotel in Cimarron, New Mexico, that at that time that we shot there had a room that had been padlocked for 12 years because it was believed that there was a ghost there that would kill people. If you could spend the night in this room, as the legend goes, after you left, shortly after, this ghost would kill you. And again, the room had been padlocked for 12 years. You want to guess what number the room was? 18. Of course. And the hotel sat on a piece of land called Uraca Mesa, which is a spiritual portal to the Hopi Indian. And guess what the mesa is known for? It is known for a specific type of bird that watches over the mesa. You guessed it, black crows. So I'm going, well, I wanted to find a way to overcome my fear of these crows and the number 18. Here it is. Here it is. So we went and we shot that episode, and if you saw the episode, man, it is crazy. 9 minutes into our first investigation, a chair goes sliding towards Mary Beth and I, moved about 8 inches on its own. It was just crazy. The place was so haunted, and so much activity was going on. A big part of that was, I know it was what we brought with us. I know it. And what I mean by that is that spiritual energy. You can't spend that much time down the rabbit hole and not come out with some stains, So the time came. They cut the padlock off. I had spent the night in the room. And yeah, there was crazy stuff that went on in the room. But while I was in there, I realized I'm doing fine. Like, nothing's hurting me. Nothing. I'm okay. It was just a very profound realization that my father was right. I was giving the power to number 18. I was giving the power to the crows. Common sense had to prevail, It was me. I was doing it. So my idea was, rather than fear these things and run from them, I was going to own them. I was going to take the symbols that scared me the most and make them a calling card, to shove it so in my face that I could never fear those things again. So I started finding a way to incorporate the 18 in every movie that I made, because films make me so happy. I started including the crows in our merchandise as well as the 18. In fact, the 18 became so popular that there was a time period that we had jackets that just said 18. That's it. Just had the 18 on the back of it. And people, that were down with us, they would know right away when they saw that jacket and they saw that 18. Oh, that's Chad stuff. And it worked. Pretty soon that 18 started feeling like it was mine. I bring this story up because I think there's a lot of people that have fell for the same thing that I did. something bad happens in our life and we associate it with something to the degree that it's almost superstition. And now I look down on my skin and I have tattoos of crows and the number 18 on my body. I went from being terrified to having it on my body. And oddly enough, it's something that I'm actually very proud of. I love those tattoos. I wouldn't take them off for the world. So if you're out there and you have something like this, you're number 18 or you're crow or whatever that thing is that terrifies you, that you try to avoid at all costs, just remember, you have all the power. In order for that stuff to affect you, you have to choose for it to affect you. And if you could choose for that thing to affect you, you could also choose for it not to. Thank you for listening to the In a Crowded Room podcast. I'll be back tomorrow with more. All the best.